Welcome back, and thank you so much for staying with us. At the start of the new year, many people look for ways to make a better control of their finances and also build healthier money habits. Creating a realistic monthly budget can help manage everyday expenses, plan for the year ahead, and also reduce financial stress. This morning, we are joined virtually by financial advisor Jerry Chikambi to better understand how one can build and maintain a budget that works in real life. Very good morning to you, Jerry. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, John. Thank you for having me.
Absolute pleasure to be speaking to you this morning. Jerry, when someone is creating a monthly budget at the beginning of a new year, what steps should they take when it comes to, actually budgeting and actually also just making sure your finances are in order? And, how can you also make sure that it actually reflects their income and also the spending habits?
I think at the beginning of the year, what you need to do is compare your previous expenditures and your current income. So you need to take your last year bank statement, credit card, then you check. Then you start now planning. Okay, which area did I spend more? In which area did not spend more? Mostly people must understand that the budget is not a restriction. It's just a plan for your money to work for you.
Mm. Let's talk about what some of the most effective ways to actually track expenses throughout the year is so that, a budget remains actually realistic as well as accurate. Yeah.
The most effective system blend is that which you can always use with consistency. For example, as review habit. So you must always review your budget every time to see going according to your goal. Are you going according to your plan? Because majority of the people don't do a review. So that's the first point which you need to do. The goal is not to make it perfect, but to make it clear and involve the ending of your money. So those are some of the steps which you need to do. So understand what is your biggest challenge when it comes to sticking to your budget.
Yeah.
Is knowing whether you struggle more with tracking daily spending, plan on how you're going to spend on your bills, and avoiding impulse buy can also help narrow down the best strategy for you.
Jerry, from your experience, what budgeting mistakes do people actually or commonly make at the start of the year, and how can they actually avoid them? I mean, the January story is quite, of course, widely understood. But what are some of the tips that you can, give our viewers and listeners this morning on how to not, to make sure that they don't make mistakes when budgeting at the start of the year?
You know, it's that always confusing, but I always tell people they must always start with this budget where every dollar of an income is assigned to a certain or bill or saving. This ensure intentionally and reduce financial leakage. So you must always stick to them. Also have a mindset shift. Viewing your budget not a but a spending plan. So at the beginning of the year, you must always strategy. For example, mostly the cost which you incur on the beginning of the year is this for education, for like school, back to school head. There was somebody talking about it. So those are some of the costs. Then you must also consider the the major one, which we know is the rent or the bond. So those are some of the one which you need to put in your mind. That to reach with a break and building a margin. For example, for forgiveness, if you overspend one category, adjust another one. You cover the expenses which we have incurred without planning. The most successful budget is to always review your budget, to go back and check what have you planned and what have you what you've not achieved, what can you adjust in between.
Very well. And then let's talk about how, how should a monthly budget actually include Sometimes you have unexpected expenses such as medical bills, car repairs, annual payments, any sort of emergency that comes about. How can how should a budget actually include that? What's the percentage one should actually make sure that they save at least every month or whatever timely basis to actually make sure that when unexpected emergencies or whenever an emergency comes up, you actually have funds available to actually cater for that?
It's always good to have a predictable budget. For example, you must know what are your wants, what are your needs, and what are the other expenses or emergencies. So then from there, you have to calculate now you have to have for example, on your needs is mostly needed, so it's 50%. On your wants, let's say 30%, and for emergency, 20%. So you must always list them like that. For example, when it's coming to unnecessary or irregular expenses, so you must always have what we call a sinking fund, where you are going to put a certain amount of, you are going to share them according to your expenses. Now, remember, we live in different societies. Some people, their expenses are not the same like somebody who's living in Windu and living in Swakop. But now you have to categorize them: emergency fund, variable fund, sinking fund. So according to the percent and work for you. And the other thing which I always tell people is, when it's coming to our expenses, we know exactly how much we spent last year. For example, for emergency, let's say it's you spend 1,000, so you are going to divide that amount by the number of months, so you know how much you pay for that. Let's go to medical. Same apply to medical. You go in pro rata. Then you must always review to check that everything working according to what we have planned to avoid irregular expense. Whenever you encounter, for example, now you see people buy grocery from. Why do you buy always from Woolworths? You can change, go to ShopRite. We have even the new ones which I'm seeing here. It's the Indian. What's the name again? Assist me.
Model, yes, correct.
Um, yeah, the other ones you can buy from them, the Indian shops which I see all over. They are very affordable, so you can your costs through that and cut your irregular expenses through that.
And speaking about that, especially Jerry, if we can just expand a little bit. Many people actually fail to get to rather live up to the to living within their means. How important really is that? And just to make perhaps advice to our viewers this morning, how important really is it to live within your means to make sure that you actually what you can afford is what you can just afford, and that you just stick to that and you don't go beyond your pockets to actually stretch yourself and then end up in financial distress?
As I always tell people, the most important is to have to make always a new budget for every single month. And you can always do a regular review. I have couples who have even this habit of envelope. In this envelope, they write what is grocery, what is for medical, what is for. So those are some of the most important, and you must always have a review on your budget, rigid plan into. So this is a very dynamic tool that can give you control. So if you are dealing with a specific situation, for example, like a sudden drop in a freelance work or planning to work, for always adjust your budget. But as a business person, because now you have irregular income coming in your bank, it's very difficult. So you need to plan on a 6-month budget, so which you can also cater for your busy things. So irregular spending, we must always avoid now, is by always reading and, for example, the newspaper to see where can you cut costs, because some prices are adjustable in in different shops. So, but if you face what is happening, for example, let me give you an example. In January, you wanna go do shopping for your clothes, you wanna do shopping for unnecessary. It's really unnecessary in this time of January. So you must always have it for each and every month, which can give you at least an idea to go through to review it.
Yeah, and there's so much advice being given by many financial advisors that's different, and what I really want to bring to attention is the education that actually is really lacking, especially to many people. What do you use your advice to employers, especially on how they can also, come or even come halfway to their employees on how they can actually advise their employees to actually then also learn a bit about budgeting, also commit to, how they can actually spend their money to actually not be in that position. Is that perhaps a good suggestion to give?
Yeah, it's a good suggestion. You see, the only problem comes when the employer does not always the employee into their budgeting system. Because if you always interact with your employees and talk budget on how you are working in the company, I believe practically someone who has knowledge can also apply that knowledge the same to their uh, day-to-day living. As an employer, we have different department in different companies. We have human capital, which is the HR. They can always also engage, because I believe currently most of the people, when they go through financial distress, those people, they consult their HR. So the HR, they know what situation is Jerry, so they can call you and bring your, they can call you and they call maybe a financial from the financial department. Then they come together, they say, okay, let's break down for expenditures. Then they teach you and they guide you. So, and those are some of the which we really need to inquire from our employers so that they can assist. People must come out of their shell. People must come out of their shell. You must not be scared, people, to understand, because sometimes it's better to hear someone's guidance. It's better to learn from somebody with an expertise, somebody who understands in a broader way, study about it. So they can always give you a good direction on how you can most of the costs. For example, debts. How can you mitigate your debt? How can you mitigate your tax? You see, currently most of the budget their expenditure on their gross salary, their net salary, forgetting that there are certain costs which are must, which you need to pay, for tax and the social security, medical, some of those which with the company already deduct from it. So you must budget on something which are not going to end. So it's always good to approach human capital to assist you, to give you guidance. It will help you, and you that is going to work for your own benefit.
Absolutely, Jerry. Thank you so much. That's very, very important advice that you brought to our attention, to our viewers' attention this morning. Thank you so much for being with us. Of course, we hope to speak to you in the future, of course, regarding all things of finance and or the advisory that you, of course, are offering. Thank you so much for being with us this morning. We wish you all the best. Yeah.
You're welcome. Thank you.